Hello everybody, in today's video I am going to be talking about the 2020s and as you people in the future may know that there are people who have a very bright view of this era, who have a very dark view of this era. I want to tell you this right now. Whatever you think about it, it's most likely wrong. Okay? It's not as great or as good as the historians make it look. Or as worse as the historians make it look. Or just whoever, is going on in your era like, oh, the 2020s were such a great time. Dude, it was the worst and the best time of my life. Okay? 2026 specifically this year is the worst and the best time to be alive because we're in a decade, I'm in a decade anyway, where, yes, there have been eras where there have been multiple, time periods that happened at the same time. That's common, that's a thing. That's always happened. But here's one thing. It usually doesn't start in a golden age. It usually doesn't start in the beginning of a golden age. What is a golden age? Well, it's usually a 25 to 30 year span every century where it's the most advanced that they're going to get for that century. Don't get me wrong, they'll still make advancements after that span, but that's when they'll advance the most they can of that specific century, generally speaking. And there's 80-year spans of where it slows down and things still advance, but it's not quite there yet. And so all these eras, people try to say, oh, it's the Roman Empire, oh, it's medieval times, oh, it's the 1960s, oh, it's the 1890s, oh, it's this, because what they're afraid of is when a new golden era comes around, the decade that follows up to it becomes an original decade. Right now, anything leading up to a golden era makes that time period for those people, at least for, the people of the time, it would be the best and the worst time to be alive. The worst and the best. In all ways. Doesn't matter if it's religion, sports, politics, anything else, other mini entertainment, music, whatever. This is regardless. And yeah, we're in a time where people are the saddest and most depressed they've ever been, but also in a time where people are the happiest and greatest they've ever been. We're in the time where people are the most stressed and people are the least stressed. It's like a whole weird thing. And it's not like a 50-50 society split where in this country half of society is like this and half of society is like that. No, it's even in the little tiny nobody cities, it's completely mixed. In the huge cities, well, it's completely mixed. You have mixed of people who are calm, great, doing well, doing great. And then you have people who are the worst end, It's very, very rare that you find somebody who's in the middle of that. Especially when it starts out. But right now, for most people, most average people anyway, it will look worse than better. Because when a new era does come around, which is usually right around 2030, at least for me anyway, 2030 AD, that's when the time period starts to get enough around where it becomes its own thing for the first time. You know what I mean? It becomes how should I say, it becomes something of itself, where it's never been repeated before, you know? And I don't know what this century gave you or didn't give you. You wish you could have got, you wish you didn't got, you know? That kind of things. All this good, the bad, the neutral, whatever, you know? But hey, at least you guys get to know that I am wanted for treason in Switzerland. But that's unrelated, you know. That's whatever. Well, that's if Switzerland still exists, you know. But that's not related to it. But what I can say is that whatever they told you about this time period, about it being so great, about everything being like, oh, the worst day in 2026 was guys winning the lottery, and the world was healing and world peace was almost declared. No, that's not what was happening. Iran, U.S. Okay, that's, I don't have to say much there. Venezuela, U.S. Gaza war. Russian-Ukraine war. I'm not just talking wars, but also the ICE Antifa stuff. The power of ICE is being abused, and Antifa is a far left-leaning terrorist organization. So, like, they try to say that it doesn't exist, or that they're not a terrorist group or organized, but what they really just mean to say is either I agree with it or I've been told not to do this. You know, they don't really have an opinion per se, you know? Like, if you told somebody, like, they're the kind of people that if you told them, hey, if you didn't have food tomorrow, what would you do? They said, but I already had food. I already have it. Like, bro, what? It doesn't really make any sense. You know, that's just the time I live in. You know, people are they're either too unaddicted or too much addicted. You know, they're either, like, there's always the most or least extreme. You know? They can just never have a something without having to want to be less or more extreme. You know? Just let shit happen. Just let shit happen sometimes. Not all the time, but, you know, in your day-to-day life, every once in a while. You know, you don't have to do it all the time. I don't know your schedule. I don't know you. But, look, even with individuality, there is still society and culture you have to, you know, be responsible under. So you have to be similar versions, the same or similar versions of that society or culture. So if you were in a country, for example, and, you know, you wanted to be a part of that country, you would have to assimilate to that culture, know the dominant language. I'm not saying you have to convert to the dominant religion of that country, but if you want to, you can. And then once you're that way for like a long period of time, and you get really used to just being like that, being in that culture, then you can become a citizen. You know, after many years. You know, not just like a few months. No, I mean like at least a decade. Okay, if you can be fully assimilated, like for 10 years straight, then I would give you citizen pass. You know, I would let you have full citizenship. The only thing I would say non-citizens and non-citizens can have, like anybody can have, is freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and I guess, I don't know, freedom of expression, maybe, but generally freedom of, religion and freedom of, freedom of speech, generally speaking. Because that's just how it is. But I wouldn't, try to let them use it where they can basically say, hey, we're going to use our freedom of speech to take away your freedom of speech. No. Just make a law where they can't do that, where they can't exploit it. Now, don't get me wrong, they can still say those words. They can still show and be around those words. I'm just saying that those words shouldn't have any actual power, is what I mean. You should be able to say, bad things and awful things, but you should be able to say good things and nice things and neutral things as well. And unfortunately, people have a hard time understanding that, It really sucks because it's just really gets in your head, there are these artificial intelligence videos that are going around on the internet that makes people, for whatever reason, think that Israel is losing a war. Even if they are, the issue is that basically all of the videos that are showing these bombings aren't even real. So even if they are losing, you're still falling for AI. If that makes sense. Artificial intelligence. And it just really goes crazy because everything, it used to be, the big thing was sports for a while. Then the big thing for a time was religion. And then once, I want to say, 2022 came around, there was religion or whatever. It turned from religion to just straight up politics, that's where it started to crank up. And I would say 2024 onward, it's just been politic. And, COVID had that problem too, but it was more of obvious, whereas now it's just it doesn't even matter if you're on their side. They 100% agree with you. You say things they 100% agree with. They say things that you 100% agree with. And it doesn't matter how much on the side that you are on, left or right. Okay? Doesn't matter where center or whatever, or wherever you are religiously. People will use your own prejudices or biases against you. That's why I don't use ground news. That's why I don't use websites like that, because basically it makes people think that the best way to understanding the world is basically just still looking at it through their bias, just knowing what the other side is. So yes, they might know things more accurately, but they're knowing more accurately to their own bias, They're not really learning anything. They might be more literate, they might be able to know how to read and write, but what's the point if you're just gonna be a dick anyway? The bad kind, not the fun kind, the no zone, the Russian kind of. Not necessarily. If you're a Russian, I'm not saying that you're that kind of dick. Some of you could be a good dick. I'm just saying that it sometimes brings in that nastier side of things, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, if you know what I mean. I'm gonna be honest. As it's currently called, time of recording, United States of America, that's the nation that I'm from, is in a bit of a kerfluffle, bit of a pickle, bit of a problem, as you could say. And that problem is we're destroying the world and destroying ourselves at the same time. And like, it doesn't matter who was president. It could have been Obama, it could have been Joe Biden, it could have been, George W. Bush, it could have been currently Donald Trump. But right now there's just nothing really to go off of. So I'm not really worried about the 2028 election. I'm worried about the 2100 election. Like, that's how far into the future I'm worried about. Because that's how that will look. It will be the first election of that century that I don't know if I'll be a part of. And you people in the future can let me know how that turned out. But what I can, or let the people in the future know what happened, if anything did. But yeah, I don't have much to say, other than, in the 2020s, it is the worst and the best time to be alive. Out of a certain time period, this time frame. Anyway, that's all I gotta say from this video. So, I'm gonna end it. And just remember, stay ugly.